Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey, everybody. How you guys doing out there? I hope you're doing well. Actually, I hope you're doing amazing. Well, it's not good enough. Let's do amazing, right? So today I interviewed Natalie Holst. Natalie is a certified yoga instructor. She is certified in all types of yoga, not just the traditional yoga training, but she is certified in Hatha, Ashtanga, power yoga, Kundalini, restorative. She does Yoga Nidra, yin. Basically, she just has a vast amount of knowledge in all things yoga. She also has advanced training in anatomy and yoga as therapy. So Natalie starts out by sharing her personal journey that led her to her yoga practice and eventually becoming certified in all of these things, and talks about how it helped her manage things like anxiety, depression, self-esteem issues. I feel like we can all relate to that, right? And she's kind of an introvert. And so by teaching yoga, she's been able to break out of her shell a little bit. So I'm sure some of you can identify with that. We talk a lot about the challenges and misconceptions that might prevent us from starting our own practice. And we go over some of the different types of yoga because it's confusing out there, right? We see all of the offerings that a particular studio may have, and we don't know which one's the right one for us. We don't know where to start. And if we head in there for the wrong one, if it's too much for us, we're probably getting in the car and never coming back. Let's just be honest. She helps us figure out what would be best for us as a newbie. So if you're in the same boat as me, you know you should love yoga. You've been told you got to try yoga, but you're just not there yet. I hope this episode helps you. This one's for you. So let's jump in and get a better understanding of what yoga is all about and see if it resonates with you. And this might be something you want to start in the new year here as part of your spiritual journey. So let's jump in. Let's hear what this is all about and decide if yoga is right for you. Hey, Natalie, thanks for being with me today. I'm excited to hear all of your wisdom.
Thanks for having me. I'm not sure how much wisdom I've got, but thanks.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, a whole lot more than me when it comes to the yoga. I'm excited. So I like to just start off hearing a little bit about your spiritual journey and what led you to your yoga practice, because that's kind of your main thing right now is yoga. You do other things, you have other stuff, but mainly the yoga. So just tell me a little bit about, when did this feel like it started for you? Were you always spiritual? Did something happen? Did you just all of a sudden decide, I got to change things? Or just, start wherever you want to.
I think I've always been kind of drawn to spiritual. I used to live in the country, and I was a little bit of a loner child. And we used to live near a lake and in a kind of an abandoned golf course. And I always used to just like being on my own and walking around there and just seeing if I could just through sitting, just kind of be one with the environment a little bit. I really wasn't into a lot of sports growing up. I was the quitter child.
Yeah.
I would try figure skating, didn't like it, quit it. I didn't want team sports at all. I hate running. If there's ever a zombie apocalypse, I'm in big trouble.
Did you in school, did you have to run the mile? Was this a thing for you?
I didn't remember running the mile, but
we had to always run a mile and we got timed. And I was like, it was the worst day of the year for me at school. Anyway.
Yeah, it was awful. I did rock horseback riding. I did get into a lot of horseback riding in my teen years, and that was really wonderful.
More nature-based, yeah.
Yeah, more nature-based. But generally, I quit so many things. That's just sort of putting context behind things. But
was there religion in your childhood?
Oh, we were vaguely Catholic. My Opa was more Catholic, but then he had a falling out with the church because of the hypocrisy. My Opa was a very man of integrity, I would say. He really was very clear on that. So he had a bit of a falling out with the church. I wasn't baptized until I was 2 because the church refused to baptize me as a child because I guess we hadn't been regular members or whatever. So anyways, I finally got baptized at 2, and the story is after the priest baptized me, I said, I don't like this man. And I was talking about the priest. And then a few months later, something happened and he kind of went away. It disappeared. I'm not sure exactly what happened there.
So your intuition was already heightened, as it is when we're children.
Ooh.
You know, we're pretty heightened until the age of 7. So you knew, you felt the vibe from a young age from other people.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
I did. And I've always been rightfully so. My parents keep telling me I'm way too sensitive. I'm way too sensitive. I'm way too sensitive. So yes, I really didn't get into yoga until about 2000. It was taught by this cute little older lady named Eleanor, who was trained in the Shivananda tradition. And it was in a church basement of Immaculata High School in Ottawa in about, I think, 2003. And she wanted us getting into handstands really rather quickly now that I think about it.
I don't even know if I'm ever getting there. Yeah.
So that was kind of fun. But of course, there's sessions and they end. And then my best friend, Heidi, she used to live in this apartment complex. And near her was this little community center that was offering yoga. And that was a really nice experience. The woman had candles and this nice environment. And she had a very calming presence. And I've always been very anxious.
Okay.
Well, it took you a lot of convincing for me to do this interview. And I'm sure after I'm going to be like, oh my God, why did I give that interview?
Oh my God.
Sure. I know it is. You took a little bit of convincing for me, right? So I have a lot of anxiety.
You were struggling with some anxiety, self-esteem, all kinds of stuff. We're all dealing with that. I know that for sure. So you're kind of in this spot in your life. Are you working at this time? Do you have like a full-time job?
Yes, this is the other thing. Most of my high school, even like I've had kind of more or less kind of jobs since I was maybe 12. They always just kind of fall into my lap. I was like the responsible kid. So I worked at my friend's place. Her mom had a hairdressing salon. So I, washed heads, took appointments, swept the floor kind of thing. I worked at the Barrie Raceway, which was the place to work as a teenager. So I got sent down to the concession stands. Okay. Which was a very hard job, long evening, long hours. You're on your feet most of the time and you're dealing with, weird old guys, giving you little notes on tickets like, hey, give me a call, you're really cute.
Oh my God. They had a whole different income source for you. No.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like, it was always so funny. Your friends would say, hey, Dad, you want to come out after? I'm like, no, I've just worked like an 8-hour shift and I smell like a French fry.
And probably because you're saying like you're empathetic, feel the feelings. You probably, after all of that, because that job was not in alignment with you, I'm guessing, and you probably needed some serious downtime. Like I can go and do big things, but no, I got to have plenty of alone time and just center myself, like chill out. Yeah. So then yoga came in when? What job were you doing when the yoga came in?
Then I went to university. So my degree is in sociology, anthropology. And then eventually I kind of got shuffled into working for the federal government. I really got into yoga. My friend Heidi, her sister Anne-Marie used to go to this big studio. It had like 3 different rooms, yoga rooms. It had classes coming out throughout the week. And, it was like pay one of those things. You can go to whatever classes you want. The pricing was reasonable. And my husband and I both got really drawn into it. And so at that point in time, we were just going as often and as many times as we could. I think actually, to be honest, because we were so obsessive, I think during those early years, early times, we were probably not nice people to be around. When someone gets really involved and nothing else matters and friendships and, well, I can't see you tonight. I had to do yoga, I'm not literally.
Well, that's what we do when we start in something. We get real obsessive about it. And then when it becomes a real practice, we can chill out a little bit and see other things. You and your husband were doing that together. It's not like there was a disconnect because you were doing it hardcore and he was like, what are you doing? So that's actually really nice.
Yeah.
You don't hear that a lot. People join yoga as a couple. I love that.
So it wasn't long after. I just felt so good when I practiced and there was just such a relief from my mind. Or to be honest, this is another segue, but if you were to burn my yoga mat back then, I think a lot of demons would have been escaping. I have a lot of unresolved anger. I didn't know what was inly coming out and on my mat. So much so, this is another aside. Yeah, it became a little bit of a problem in this studio. But anyway, 2005.
Wait a minute. Was everyone wanting to kick you out of there? Were you?
Yes. I was that negative. Like I was just spewing off that much negative energy. And I've never felt like I'd be really good at anything.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have a somewhat of an innate natural flexibility, though it's a little less now because I don't push into that anymore. But I never felt like I was really good at anything. And yoga was the one thing where I actually felt like I was kind of good at it. I was flexible, and people are just so impressed by flexibility. Never mind, you could just might have a bone structure and muscle structure for it. You know, you may not. You may
that girl in class doing the big things and showing everybody up.
Exactly, I was, and my ego was loving it.
Yeah, yeah.
My ego was just like feeding off that. I really, in hindsight, that was probably not very healthy for me at all. You know,
it was just a phase. It was a part of the path you were on, and so what? Everybody had to deal with it. It's fine.
Yeah. So they actually called me in and had a talk with me that they were getting complaints from students about, because I was so angry, and I was like, I'm doing my pose and I'm going to do it perfectly, and I better, you know, like here I am doing this now, you know, like there was just so much.
So the negativity was kind of filling the room, and people were feeling it.
People were feeling it.
So when they had that little conversation with you, did it click for you to make a change, or did you just leave mad?
I was devastated. I was really, really hurt. I was really hurt. I don't blame them for bringing me in. On the other hand, I don't think they gave me enough support. You know, like, hey, do you need to talk to someone? Obviously, you know, we can tell that there are some issues you might be dealing with. Can we help you suggest someone to talk to, you know, for mental health? Mm-hmm. And there was none of that suggested, just like, stop what you're doing or you can't practice here anymore. So, it was kind of harsh.
A little harsh.
A little harsh. But
did you start digging in, like doing the work? You know, we were doing work. You're not why you felt those feelings, or?
No, I just kind of timed back a little bit. That didn't come until a little bit later. So just to go back. So regardless of that, I still continued to practice there. And they had all sorts of variety of different classes happening. They had, you know, your regular, more traditional Hatha style classes with teachers who were trained in the Shivananda tradition. They had power, your vinyasa classes. They had Bikram, which is now probably called, you might know of it now, like being called Hot 26, which is the rebranding name, because Bikram, of course, fell from grace.
Fell from grace. Okay.
Yeah. So Bikram was the practice done usually in a really super hot room, and you do the same poses twice.
Okay.
And the practice is like a script.
Sometimes we just hear it's just hot yoga.
Right. So they had that. They had restorative, which I really didn't get into later in my practice. One of the teachers there, Mark Lahem, he brought into the studio yin style yoga. Like, they had just about everything going on. I would pretty much step and dip my toe into any form of yoga just to give it a try.
You were doing yoga already like it was your full-time job.
Exactly. And I can't remember at what point it was. I'm a little hazy on the details, but I was also taking that form called Kundalini yoga. And this is a kind of an important backstory to it. There was a point, Kundalini yoga gets you doing some really crazy and sometimes uncomfortable, weird things. Okay. That's just part of the practice, because part of the practice is to poke, provoke, and elevate.
Okay. Provoke.
So that poke, provoke, and elevate, which means you're doing things which sometimes seem very simple, but we're doing them for like a minute or 2 minutes. And you think, well, I got this at 30 seconds. This is no problem. And then you're doing it. And then after that 30 seconds is like, fine, I'm so frustrated right now. I'm so irritated right now. You know, like all these things come up. So there was one particular class with a teacher named Annie there where she had us behave like children. Like, we're doing this more no thing, like almost taking a little tantrum.
Okay, yeah.
And it was just way too weird for me. And I was taking it with my husband and my friend Jim. And Jim is extremely practical and practical-minded. So I am like dying inside of embarrassment and thinking, this is the biggest load of rubbish. And why am I here? And blah, 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 blah. And I'm never doing this practice again. Like, this is it. I'm done with it.
Yep.
So we left that class thinking, that was freaking weird. And it was really weird. I was really irritated that I was so irritated by it. And that I couldn't let go. Like, it was just like this itch.
Okay,
this weird itch. Like, why am I still why am I still focusing on it? Like, that happened like now months ago. And I hadn't been to a Kundalini class So I thought, well, there's got to be something to this practice. The fact that I am so irritated because, that's sometimes how we grow, and maybe like it
probably helped you think, ooh, maybe that's what I need.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So needless to say, shortly after that, I started a teacher training.
So you jumped from thinking this is absolutely insane to signing up for a class to be certified.
Yeah. It was a 6-month program. 5.
Did it help cleanse some of these problems you felt like you were having?
Not exactly. I'm very cautious when I speak to my students about yoga, that it's not a cure-all.
Oh, no. I just didn't know if obviously you connected with it because you completed the program. And so it did bring some of these feelings out. So at this point in your yoga journey, what are you feeling? Are you feeling like it is helping you emotionally with mental health things, with all of that? Has that all set in yet or not quite yet?
It's certainly helping, giving me a toolbox of things, because it is meditation and it's movement and there's mantra and there's just so much to do with a Kundalini practice that I think for all that, I think it definitely helped. It helped smooth out the edges for sure. It helped tone down some of my tendencies, let's say, like I'm a bit OCD when it comes to cleanliness. And I remember before you ever having a big freak out on my poor husband at the time, poor Mike's, because he didn't fold the towels the right way.
Oh God, I need my towels folded the right way too.
No, they're not folded the right way. I can either say something nicely or just right. Okay, I'll just refold them.
Yep. So you've modified. Yeah. You're noticing your triggers, realizing it's a you thing.
Yeah. It's a me thing.
It's a me thing. Yeah. We got to always look back in the mirror when there's a problem. Yep.
Exactly. No matter there's a saying I always like, which is, no matter how problematic the people in your life are, you are always the solution.
Exactly. Yeah. We have control over everything, really, if we empower ourselves to do so. Okay. Got certified in Kundalini was your first certification. And then you moved on to get all kinds of them.
Yeah. So I did start teaching shortly after that.
And you're still working your government job.
Still working the government job.
Was there a point where you're like, nope, I'm only doing yoga?
There was. That came around not too long after I started teaching, actually. Well, again, with my government job, I kind of kept hearing, I was getting at that point where there's only so many times around the block that they can keep you on as contract before they really have to decide what they're doing with you.
Crazy journey.
Yeah, some in the government and in Ottawa, and it makes sense. I kept hearing everything will be better once you get your French, which I really resented that comment, because I think either you're really good at languages or you're not, number one. And number two, they're just like getting your French. Like, I'll pick that up with my milk and my tampons next time I'm out. Like, I understand why. I mean, it's the federal government and, French is an official language. So,
yes. Yeah. So it sounds like, as with every country, the government kind of sometimes it isn't great. They screw things up. So you're working in this system.
And I keep hearing, get my French. So my friend very nicely got me this interview with Treasury Board of Canada. I go into this interview, and at this point it had been running around in my mind that, I know I'm not suited for the federal government. Like, I'm really not. I back a lot of authority. And I think if you do work federal government, I think, to a certain degree, you have to be willing to do your job regardless of who's in power and whether you agree with the decisions or not. Like, and I'm not really that. And I just kind of, and there's other reasons why I was just not a good fit.
Yeah.
So it had been growing around in my head. Like, I debated about this for a while. My husband saw or accounted, like, what happens when Nat is unemployed. I kept seeing like little signs around town. There was a church that had little sayings, and one of them was, first you leap and then your wings spread. And I felt like, that's talking to me, Anyway, so I go into this interview with Treasury Board, and there are these two little, I would say, kind of old women across from me looking at me like, well, where do you see yourself in the government in the next 5 years? And my mind just went blank. I can't even BS anything at this point. Like, nothing is coming up. And this little rose kept going inside of me. Teach yoga. I can't say that. Teach yoga. I get louder. Teach yoga. Get louder. And then finally I looked at them And I just, one part of my mind just went like, oh, F it. I'm going to teach yoga. And it didn't really look, I was like, what? I'm like, I was trying to figure out how I would teach yoga within the context of it. Like, no, I'm going to teach yoga full time. That's what I'm going to do. So anyways, my friend, who I saw after, because I think it really like miffed with me, like, what were you doing in there? You know, you made me look very good, you know. Got to do this interview, and I'm like, I'm really sorry. It's just what happened. And at the end of 2016, I was a month away from getting my permanent C letter with being a permanent, like the gold standard.
Permanent government employee.
Permanent government employer, all the benefits, all the perks, and blah, blah, blah.
And you gave it up.
And I gave it up. And, you know, people were kind of like, what are you? For yoga, of all things. So, yeah, so that's basically when I started teaching full time.
So what changes have you seen since you've really done full-time yoga? Like what changes in yourself have you seen? Like how has it bettered you?
I think it's been really more compassionate, I think, towards what other people are going through, because I've also have gone through other challenges within the my own practice itself. So I think what that's been really good is bringing me very dedicated to wanting to continue my own practice in my way and not being so dogmatic about my practice as well. Trying to find a better balance, better work-life balance. It's hard as, you know, by nature, it's brought me out of my shell. I'm an introvert. I'm a very happy little homebody. So if I didn't teach yoga, I don't know when I'd, you know, leave the house or talk to people, you know.
You may have no human contact if you didn't teach
Exactly.
yoga. Yeah.
Exactly.
Husband ever do any certifications?
Yes, actually, he did. At the same time I was taking my Hatha style training with Santosha Yoga Studio, he also took a 6-month training with another yoga studio. So he took it at a different place because we figured we spend enough time together that we don't need to be another 6 months with training together. So
that's probably a good thing. Yeah. Because you spend enough time together as a couple. And so I'm assuming this has probably, it brought you closer together? I'm just assuming, but you can tell me differently. Like as a couple, did this bring you closer?
Yes, it did bring us, I would say it definitely brought us closer together.
Okay, good.
It makes for some very interesting conversations. Like he comes to my classes and he's kind of first to find out, oh, it was really funny when you said this. And you know, you said this wrong. I'm like, thanks, honey.
All right. So he's a critic.
So he's a bit of a critic. Yeah, but he's also my biggest supporter. So, because there's been times where, you know, I'm not making a lot of money really doing this job, and there's times where I thought about, I should just stop this and maybe try and look for a real job and get something different or bring something different. And, you know, he's always like, don't do that.
Yeah, no, you can't doubt yourself. You're on the right path.
Yeah. So that's really great.
Okay, good. Perfect. And this is probably the first thing, because you talked earlier about how when you were younger, you quit everything. And so this sounds like then the first thing, because you've been doing yoga a long time, that you have committed to and stuck with.
Yes.
So this was clearly meant to be your path, because this is not something that you quit. Your ego, everything got on board with yoga. Everything's
on board. Exactly. Yeah. And you wax and wane a little bit with the practice, like, you know, like anybody does. But I always, my husband and I were talking about it. He says, but you always come back to it. And he says, and that even takes discipline. Like you always come back to the practice. And what's beautiful about the practice of yoga is that there's so many different elements to it that you can bring into your life, you know, at any point in time. It's more than just the asana or the postural or the body practice. There's a mind practice. There's meditation.
Yeah, let's talk some yoga, because I really want all my friends listening too, if you may have a yoga practice or you may not, you may be thinking, ooh, this might be for me, but I'm intimidated, all the things. So let's talk a little bit about, because I'm going to out myself first. I desperately want to love yoga. I think we get in the spiritual journey and we think, well, we got to do yoga. We got to do yoga. And I've had trouble falling in love with it. I think maybe because I just haven't found the right fit yet. I don't know. Yeah. So I'll out myself. My favorite part of yoga is the final savasana.
And for some people, that's the worst of it. I've got a student of mine where the Shavasana is the hardest pose for her because she's fidgety and she's busy. So I can just tell, like, she's so, my cue to her is like, try to relax, just try to be still, just watch the busyness.
Yes. So I can sit still my body. I have trouble calming my mind, but I can sit still. So that's my favorite part, but probably partially too, because I don't love the working out. I don't love, like you said, running, sweating, all the things. And so I think, so let's get into some of the things so we can kind of help people figure out which practice might be best for them to start on and just get rid of some of the misconceptions, I think, sometimes women, especially midlife women, that we might have. So just if you had to, we can't nutshell yoga, but like you just started mentioning all the things that yoga does for you. Yoga is what? It's not just an exercise. It's not just, you're not just going to a workout class, right? Like aerobics or anything. It's a practice. So in your words, kind of tell me what a yoga practice is or looks like.
Yoga practice. Oh, it's so hard to sum up in it really is. It's really funny. But yoga practice is really about uniting your body and your mind in a non-judgmental space and traditionally it uses the practice of your body, which is, the grossest element we have to come present into, and the breath. So it works with your breath and generally works with your body, though there's varying different styles of that. But generally it works with your body to help you become present to what is arising in the present moment, to be mindful.
Yeah. So what exactly do you think the relationship would be between yoga and spirituality? Why would it be important for us to try and incorporate yoga into our spiritual journey awakening?
I think that might just evolve organically.
Okay.
Because a lot of people don't go into yoga for that. Like when we started back in 2004, that was really like this beautiful heyday of yoga. And I think most people were going to yoga to get the yoga butt and to look good in Lululemon.
As a workout. Yeah.
As a workout. It was definitely a much more workout. And that is still a noble place to begin. If you begin because you have a lot of kids and you need some space from your kids or your husband or your life, and that's what gets you into yoga. As long as you're a bit honest about that, that's fine. So other people get into yoga because their back hurts or because this hurts or they're hoping to work with this or that. But
so there's a lot of different reasons to start into yoga.
To start.
People in yoga start to feel that spiritual connection because of the practice.
Because of the practice. I think once you really you'll have these little moments for your breath and the movement in synchronicity. And, they say that Richard Freeman describes your breath and like fish in a pond. So like the fish in the pond are kind of like your thoughts, but your breath can help control it. So that the fish and the breath move together. And then there's a little bit more stillness and calm.
So a big part of yoga is the breath work, is what you're saying.
Rest, definitely.
So a good yoga instructor should really be making sure we're understanding how we're breathing during it. Because that might be part of where I lack. I don't know, being really connecting with my breath at the same time. Because I'm so worried about everything else going on that I think I do forget about my breath.
And that's natural. Like when you begin to, breath is probably the hardest thing to get into. I know for a long time I just had to practice with a little mantra in my head going inhale, exhale, because at some point I realized I really wasn't breathing.
No, because I think we've all been trained to not breathe loudly and bother people around us.
That's right.
We're brought up to be more quiet. You don't do a bunch of big breaths in front of other people. You don't do big sighs and big all. So I think the stigma of that when we get a room full of people doing yoga and they're saying like, let it out, whatever. Yeah. It's hard for us to release that because middle-aged women, especially, we weren't raised with all of that. We were raised to be quiet, keep to ourselves, don't make a lot of commotion in a room. Yeah. We weren't taught to take up our space. So that's something we can learn to do on our mat. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Like,
that's right.
It's okay to do the big sighs and everything else.
So the breath is just so important and just so really key. And the breath is generally present and the body is generally in the present, right? It's the mind that tends to wander and go into either into the past, move into the future. The mind's a time traveler.
Yes.
And the mind's a task maker. They call it the monkey mind.
Let it wander? Or what do you recommend if it starts to wander? Like, I'm doing yoga, this practice is for me, I'm doing the breathing, I'm moving my body, but my mind is worried about everything I have to do before I can go to bed tonight and everything happening tomorrow, right? Or thinking about everything that happened earlier in the day or yesterday that's bothering me still. Do you have a tip to like refocusing it back to just centering ourselves in that moment on the mat?
Well, number one, just by anchoring yourself, like, oh, wow, it's more like creating that self-awareness, that moment of like, wow, my mind is really busy today. Or, wow, these are the qualities of my thought today. And not to beat yourself up about it, because it's going to happen. I have some really great days where, I've been doing this, oh my goodness, like 20 years now. It's mind blowing to me over that. But I still have days where like, wow, turns in my mind today. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about what I want to do after. Usually it's me where it goes back to food. I'm really hungry right now. What am I going to eat now? Things like that. And just to be aware of that. Like, wow, that's the content of my thoughts today.
And then, okay, so we're on our mat and we're realizing our mind is wandering. So we bring it back. We acknowledge, why am I thinking about all these things? What's the easiest way then to come back to center? Is it through the breath work? Is it through a pose? Are you counting in your head? Is there a little technique to bring yourself back to that moment?
Sometimes it depends on the practice that you're doing. Sometimes it's just bringing your attention back to the breath. Oh, okay, I'm going to take an inhale. I'm going to take an exhale. Sometimes it's depending on the pose you're in, like standing. That's why I often do a lot of beginner classes. Sometimes I believe focus a lot more on the standing poses because they're trickier, a little trickier to do. Like when you're trying to do, say, Warrior 1 or Warrior 2 or just standing in mountain. You're more aware of yourself, you're aware of your feet, versus often when you get down to the cooling exercises, the exercises that are on the floor with your bum down or laying on your back, it's easier at that point too. So they'll check out a little bit. It happens, but so it could be like, oh, and then Warrior 1 pose, or now I'm balancing, and wow, balancing is really hard. And when you're balancing, it's probably you're more focused on trying to balance than you are on like trying to think about your shopping list.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So just the practice of yoga kind of keeps us in the moment because we're having to focus on all the things we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Okay. And it's a practice, and you're developing an awareness, your self-awareness muscle.
Yeah.
And it's a muscle that needs to be developed.
So stick with it. Consistency probably. It's a big part of your yoga practice.
Exactly.
All right. So let me ask you about some more misconceptions. Your take on this. A lot of people think I'm too old or too young for yoga. I'll just say with us middle-agers, we think we're getting too old because we're getting the creaks and the hips and everything's starting to hurt, and that yoga is only for flexible people. And I'm not very flexible. And what would you say to that one?
Or number one, if you don't start the practice and you don't start to get into some form of practice, you're going to lose all what you might have. So I don't mean to put like a fear factor on that, but that's just a necessary truth.
Right. Because as our little bodies are declining, we're getting more creaks and sore hips and all the things. If we don't start some type of practice, I mean, it's only going to get worse. It won't get better.
Yeah, it's not going to get better. And, you do practice with where your starting point is. And so, you may never be a contortionist, but yoga is not about the flexibility. It's about your journey on the way to touch your toes. Whether you touch your toes or not isn't more important. It's your journey there.
Okay, so I think this is one of the reasons that it keep people from starting a yoga practice like at a yoga studio, because we feel like we're going to be judged, right? We're going to be on our mat because I feel like I'm not judging other people in the room, but for some reason I think they're judging me. Like I'm doing a modification because we can modify everything that our instructors
for sure.
We don't have to do that because there's no way I'm getting in a headstand or any of these other crazy things. I'm not there. I'm not saying I don't have that potential, I guess, but that's not my purpose usually when I'm practicing yoga. But I feel like others around me might be like, what is she doing here? Why is she, you know? So I think we all get really worried about what everyone else in the room is going to think because they've been doing yoga longer than us. They might be skinnier than us. They're more in shape. They're younger, whatever, And so I think that's a barrier for a lot of middle-aged women to start something new like yoga is what's everyone going to think in that room of me?
I think that's a very important and true point, because the competitive mind, it does spring up when you're in a yoga class and you're looking around at other people and you're looking at that person and you're looking at that person. And, I think it's common to think, oh, everyone's judging me and that I'm not doing this, or they're going to think I'm really tight, or I don't have the right blah, 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 blah. And I don't think that really happens because most people are in their own little world thinking the same things, that they're not even really concentrating on you either. They're too focused,
Yeah, they're not looking. Because sometimes I'll be sweating and my body will be shaking and I'll feel like I'm looking around like everyone else is on easy street having no problems at all, and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm shaking. I am hot. Am I going to vomit?
Yeah.
And then we get in our heads in a negative way and we're like, oh, like, what do I do now? And then you get stuck in, oh my God, is this almost over? I'm speaking for myself right now, but I know others are right there with me listening, like, oh my God, is this almost over? Like, I feel like I'm overdoing it. So if we get to that point, is it a big deal if we just need to hit up the child's pose for a minute or just sit down cross-legged and just close our eyes for a minute and refocus and then get back into it? There should not be judgment in the room if we need to do that, right?
No, there definitely should not. There definitely is not judgment if you need to do that. I always give lots of leeway for my students.
Yes, I've had in my head, I kind of just want to hit up a child's pose for a minute. I need to relax because sometimes it'll stir up emotions in you, even the different poses. It does. And you're like, I just need a minute to myself. And it's okay to take that during the middle of a practice, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah. I always give, lots of indication to my students, if you need to take child pose, and most teachers do, good teachers will do. If you need to modify, if you need to leave out a pose, you don't have to do everything in here. You do what you need to do. This is your practice. If you need to take a child's pose at any point in time, please do so. If you need to lay down, please do so. And self-regulation, I think, is probably one of the hardest things in a yoga practice, is knowing when you've perhaps worked too hard, knowing where your limit is, and what at the right amount of, you don't want to move into pain, but sensation. You want to be somewhat challenged, but you don't want to have to throw up over that challenge. You know what I mean?
No. Because I think once we get in the spot where we're like, okay, nobody else in this room cares what I'm doing on my mat right now, then we have to get over ourselves caring. Like for me, it's me caring. No, I paid for this class. I need to do everything they're doing. Then I'm hard on myself. No, Jen, you are not going to do a child pose. You're going to keep up with everyone in this room. Yeah. Then we have to overcome our own judgment and say, no, girl, you need to sit down for a minute, right? So give ourselves permission to just do whatever we feel like doing in the moment. Use our own intuition and listen to ourselves, to our own bodies. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you paid whatever you paid for that class. It doesn't matter if half of it you need to be still. It's okay.
It's okay.
Because what you're paying for isn't always just the workout aspect. You're paying for the peace of mind, the mind, body, spirit connection. That's what you're there for. And so still worth your money, right?
It is still worth your money.
Yeah, still with your money. So don't even worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. If you need to rest, you rest.
Yes. And then another thing I think that we think of, whether we're going to go to a yoga studio or we're going to start a practice at home online, we think, okay, well, this is going to cost me a bunch of money because I need all the cute clothes that everybody else is wearing. And I need all this expensive equipment. I need the best mat they sell and the best this and all this stuff, because you can order. I mean, there's so many products now out there, right? That I think we start to forget that all we really need is our body to move. And so what do you think about this whole craze of needing to have certain clothes and certain equipment and the investment that's outside of even just paying for our class. Is it all necessary, or what is it?
No, I think there's lots of really good options out there, like, Winners or HomeSense. Sometimes they have yoga mats at a really good price. Costco, you can get a little kit with a yoga mat and a block, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. I recommend not worrying about that. You can just want to get some yoga clothing to start, but you don't need to have anything particular, anything that you can just move comfortably in, and just be mindful to wear. You want to wear a loose fitting t-shirt that if you're going in downward dog or something where you're going below that, the t-shirt's gonna,
something that's going to make us comfortable as far
exactly.
as like supporting the girls. The regular bra is a nightmare if you try. Right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You don't throw on the underwire for yoga.
Well,
no. Okay.
No.
So we want to have some kind of comfortable bra, a comfortable shirt that we're comfortable in long enough. But like you said, if it comes up, I like to get the tighter yoga pants, and they can be really cheap ones. Like some of my favorites came from Costco, but they come up a little bit higher on your stomach, right? So you're not worried about falling out all over the place. And then just a comfortable tank top or something, or t-shirt or whatever you're comfortable in. And that's really, you just want to be, because you're not just, if you're new to yoga, you're bare feet. That's the nice thing. You don't need to worry about buying a special pair of shoes or socks or any of that. Just barefoot, just being comfortable. That when I, go to a yoga class, I kind of like when the other people in the room aren't like in perfectly coordinated, pretty, expensive outfits. I like when people are just wearing whatever they're comfy in, because we all feel more comfortable. I don't feel so that, that my tank doesn't perfectly match, what I'm talking about. They come with like the yoga pants that perfectly match their sports bra, and everything just looks perfect. And that's not necessary though, you guys. You can just show up in comfortable clothes that you feel like you can move in and relax in. So we don't need to invest in clothes. Yeah. No. And obviously we do need a yoga mat. Now some yoga studios, you can rent one for them for $1 or something, whatever you can. Or like you said, there's a lot of cheaper options, and maybe to start your practice, that's fine. Right. And then if you are really sticking with it, it becomes a thing. That's when to invest in like a better mat. Put it on your birthday or Christmas list for someone to purchase for you or whatever. If we're going to start at home with the online class, we need a mat, and we probably need that block.
Or yoga block would be good. And the other thing I might recommend is like a yoga strap. And it could even just be something like a strap that you might have around like your house coat. Just something that if you're down on the ground and you want to stretch up, or you need to reach for something, it gives you that option.
Those are the basic things you need.
Yeah, those are the basic things. And again, if you don't have a block, you can get creative. You can use a couple of books or something that's sturdy. Like look around the house. You might be surprised what you might actually have at home that you can use. It doesn't have to be the fancy equipment, especially when you're first starting.
Yes. Okay. No. Just because we mentioned it, another thing people think is you have to go to a studio to practice yoga. But now, especially since COVID, so many online options where you can start this practice in the privacy of your own home, because some people, whether it's from anxiety, depression, different things you're working through right now, you might not be in a place to be in that group setting yet, because there's a lot of energy in that room too. Like you had said, for a while at the beginning of your journey, you were putting off negative energy. There's always going to be someone like that in the class, throwing off some negative energy, someone positive. So if you're not ready to absorb all of that yet, be around that many people, and maybe you just need to you can do it in the privacy of your own home with your mat, and you can do it online now. So we'll talk more about that, but that's definitely an option. So just because the yoga studio in your town, either you're not ready to be around people, or it's expensive for you right now, or it's too much of a commitment, that's okay. Heck, even if you're not signing up for a full online class paid, you can start doing some YouTube videos and stuff just to see if this is, start connecting and seeing if this is right.
And don't be afraid to explore, because you may not connect with the teacher or the class the first time. A lot of people, I know a lot of other fellow yoga teachers who are like, my friend took me into yoga. I really didn't get it because, I really preferred running. Running was my thing. Really didn't get it. And, I just kind of kept coming back with my friend. And then there was this run class with this one teacher, and it just hit.
Yes.
Like I got into Shavasana and I got it.
Yes, because the connection you feel with your instructor is important too, because you want to feel their energy, and you want to feel like they're guiding you in a way that works for you. It's just like finding a therapist or anything else. You kind of want to find the yoga instructor that you feel like their style connects with you and their voice and like all the little things make up a really
And
good yoga teacher.
exactly. And I also think for anybody really looking into start into the yoga practice, I think, look to this is where I got my start. And I think it's a beautiful place to start as getting into yoga the first time is look to your community centers or your Y where they offer like a gentle or beginner yoga for a short period of time. And just try to be committed for that 8 or 10 week or 4-week session. Because you still have to put the effort in to get the benefit out. But looking for a short program, it's usually nice about that style of class. Those type of classes, they're usually very affordable. You are working with one teacher throughout the time, unlike going to a big yoga studio where you may get different teachers popping in and out all the time. Hopefully you're just working with one. They get to know you. They get to know your body. They get to know your challenges, how to recommend things for you. Once you're then into a smaller group, you'll get a nice little community of people who go, and you might discover like, oh, so-and-so has the same problem, or, well, this person has this problem.
Starting a yoga practice is a great way to, if you're out there trying to find your tribe, find your people in the spiritual journey. And maybe some of the friends that you have just aren't getting it. You might find like-minded people at the yoga studio. Let's just clarify really quickly. Are there reasons or precautions we should take before we start a yoga practice? Are there injuries or health conditions that we should be concerned about before we start yoga?
Well, everyone always, the rule of thumb is number one, if you are concerned, it's always good to speak to your doctor or professional.
Right.
If you're going through trying or recovering something like a knee injury or foot injury, and especially if it's fairly recent and you haven't been working with it for a while, doesn't hurt to check with your doctor on whether it's good to practice. Definitely, I think if you got high or low blood pressure issues where going upside down could be an issue, you just might want to be aware for that. It's not to say you can't go to yoga and that there aren't variations to do that. I have a student right now who's recovering from a multitude of things, but she has what's called yoga for POTS syndrome or POTS. So she can't go forward, fold really deep. She can't do downward dog. So we work with that.
Most doctors, talk to your healthcare provider, but moving our body is good for everything.
It is.
So you're probably not going to get a no, but know that there are modifications. And so that's something we should maybe talk to our yoga instructor about.
Definitely.
Help with suggestions for the modifications needed. Like if we did a new knee put in or a new hip, okay, well, how can I modify today's things?
Exactly.
Right?
Or maybe you just don't do this pose, like pigeon pose. I got a lot of students who pigeon pose is no longer good for them. So usually the recommendation for that is you lay on your back and you take this thread the needle 4 shape.
Okay.
That's your modification.
And also, is anybody too out of shape to start?
I don't believe so, per se. I would just think where you start is really very important then. Like I wouldn't jump into the big power yoga class. I think really you might have to be a little more specific on what class you attempt to fit into. Maybe if you're extremely out of shape and you have a lot of body challenges and issues, things going on that way, then, maybe you start with chair yoga. There's lots of good chair yoga out there. So getting up and down from the floor is hard for you. Chair yoga is a wonderful place to start. You can still get a lot of benefit. You're still moving, you're still breathing. You're still working, although you can still work core sitting on a chair. You can work your arms sitting on a chair. You can work your neck. You can still work lots of different parts of your body doing chair yoga.
Okay. So you're saying that it's important to choose which type of yoga. So why don't we I just want to talk about a few of different types of yoga out there so that if you're out there, whatever situation you're in right now, physically, mentally, which type of yoga, because if for us newbies, we don't understand all these different types. We don't know all these special terms and what everyone's saying. So we're not sure where to start or if it's for us.
It's very muddy. I'll admit, like the yoga industry, this has been one of my husband and I's pet peeves with people kind of renaming or rebranding yoga a little bit in the classes. Like it muddies the water of what you're actually trying to do.
People are trying to become, I don't know if they're trying to become more trendy or more, I don't know what with it, but then it's hard to tell it's hard to tell which one we should sign up for at our studio, because you can sign up with a studio and then they offer all these different kinds and you're trying to figure out, where do I go? Where do I start? Okay. So we just talked about chair yoga. Okay. So would that be more under like a restorative, or tell me about restorative yoga? Cause that seems like a easy one.
So restorative yoga is down where the body is supported by a lot of props. It's very on the ground, generally based. So your body is supported using cushions, bolsters, blankets, eye pillows, things that really feel that the body is supported so it can rest fully. We're generally starting to hold. You might start the practice off with a little bit of light or gentle movement to help the body to get ready to relax. And there usually would not be, within a given practice, that many poses, because you're trying to hold certain poses for longer periods of time, and longer being upwards of 3, sometimes depending on the nature of the pose, even as long as 10 minutes or so. So you're really allowing the body to relax. You're trying to really tap into the own body's healing power, the parasympathetic nervous system. So the rest and digest response.
And that is not to say that you're going to, that it's easy. Long time is not easy sometimes.
No,
yeah. You keep talking about, is it Hatha yoga? Hatha.
Yeah.
Explain what that is.
Well, in a sense, most of the, I would say the main postural forms, bodily type forms of yoga practiced in the West are all sort of branches off of a Hatha yoga sort of lineage.
Okay.
To start with. Let me put it this way. If I were to use different terms, if you want to go to something that's called Hatha, Hatha, it means the balance of sun and moon. And these are things where we might find yourself in classes doing some different things to warm up the body, maybe different oscillating movements. You might find yourself doing a few rounds of sun salutations or things like that, different variation. Rounder held poses, I would say you're probably, maybe holding warriors a little longer, the standing poses a little longer. You're not rushing through. You're not in a rush to get somewhere. There's time for you to explore and to hold and to be in the pose. There's always, of course, a focus and an emphasis on the breath that goes with anything. And then from that, there was also expanded out of the Ashtanga yoga lineage of Pattabhi Jois, and that is a flowing movement of sequences and poses and postures. It's generally a bit more timed. It's meant to build heat and build stamina. I wouldn't necessarily recommend if you're new and don't have a lot of flexibility or good body awareness. Good body awareness this is where it gets tricky. What is your body awareness like? Do you have really good body awareness, or if I tell you to move your right foot, you have no clue, what that is. So the body awareness becomes very key.
So that's got a little bit more to it than just the Hatha. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what about when we get into power, flow, vinyasa, those type of things? So because vinyasa is a lot more flowy movement, or?
Yeah. To me, power, flow, and vinyasa kind of sort of grow out of the Ashtanga yoga tradition. So if you teach Ashtanga as Ashtanga, it's a set series and sequence of another rhythm of poses. So usually you do, depending on your time and availability, you might do 5 sun salutation A, 5 sun salutation B. There's a whole sequence for about 15 minutes worth of standing poses. And then you move to the floor. And then there's, depending on which series, there are different series in Ashtanga. You might do something called one set is like a lot of back. One is either a lot of forward folds known as yoga therapy. Another one is there's another sequence of poses which are more working on back bends. And each of the poses you can integrate something called a vinyasa style movement, where you would, from the floor, you would hop back to plank, you go down, you come up into cobra, upward dog, a back bend, back to downward dog, and then come back to the ground again.
And then I've done power yoga where you added in hand weights and stuff even. Right?
Yes, yoga for weights is a big thing. I have not tried that. I can't really speak. I do not have an experience of that, so I can't really speak to practicing that.
But that would be a lot of times, if a class is called a power class, sometimes that's what's involved.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So power can mean a couple of different things. Power yoga, as it was initially termed, is actually a term from Beryl Bender Birch. I've trained with her. She's a really wonderful and amazing lady. But she first coined the term power yoga. She actually took Ashtanga yoga and she was trying to introduce it to the New York Running Club. That the term Ashtanga was too kind of out there. So no one knew what Ashtanga meant.
A little bit too woo-woo for them. They
They
didn't
do
like that.
woo-woo. That's right. So she renamed it power, and she got into a lot of trouble in the Ashtanga yoga community for kind of rebranding the practice, when she was just trying to bring people in. So her power yoga sticks very much to the truth of an Ashtanga practice in terms of its basic sequencing and flow. Like she so honors the series, I would say, very, very much. And then there's other yoga teachers who, again, and most people are more so the big power yoga teachers at one point in their life probably stepped in or probably dabbled in a lot with the Ashtanga yoga community because it's a beautiful practice. It's a wonderful way to build a lot of strength, heat, flexibility. It is a really amazing practice that a lot of the teachers found, I'd like to include this pose, or I would like to hold this pose longer, or I would like to do this. So power ins kind of gave this a freedom to take the precepts of an Ashtanga practice, but then to kind of recreate it. So that's where you find different teachers coming up with their own kind of style of sequencing. Like Brian Kest has his own sort of version of what he would call power yoga, and different teachers out like that who work with and use that term. So for some people, power yoga means where you're holding very challenging, like a high crescent lunge, and you're having to hold that pose for a long period of time.
Yeah. So just to clarify, these are not like first time beginner type classes. If you're not comfortable yet, like you're not even out doing anything, probably wouldn't be a suggestion to just start in with the power.
No.
Because you're probably going to get discouraged and quit. So
start
your practice a little bit easier flowing when you're picking
because,
your class.
Exactly. I would totally recommend that. Plus, because you could always, if you find like, wow, this pose is really hopefully within a confines even of a beginner style class, or a gentle yoga class even, the teacher should be able to speak to, if you're feeling more spicy today, you can take this pose deeper.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for.
Show the modification, but also show if you're ready to push forward.
Exactly. But I still think it's very worthwhile looking for some sort of beginner type start just to understand, because you're also learning, it's a lot. Yoga practice, it is a lot if you're a beginner. You're learning a whole new terminology. You're learning a whole new way to move, which might be very foreign to you. Even if you're very athletic to begin with, coming from an athletic background, you might be used to working and breathing in a certain way that you aren't used to working with in a yoga practice. So, you're having to learn, right?
Yes. I have a friend who has a yoga studio. And so I said, well, will you come over and just teach us some yoga? And so my son was in very good shape. He was a teenage boy and he was in shape. Okay. And so he was doing it and I look over and no, he's sweating, shaking. It is totally different. Even for athletes, I think this is a great practice if you're not doing it yet, even if you're an athlete, because it does push your body. Afterwards, he had no idea it was going to be that kind of a workout. You know, did you think yoga? Like, I'm not going to work up a sweat. Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are going to get sweaty. Let's just dispel that right now. It is a good workout and it's a full body workout. So it's a great way to go. Even if you're just trying to get in shape, and then the spiritual part, like you said, just slowly starts to enter into the picture with the breath work, with the mindfulness, all of those things. Yeah. So what is yin?
And it's basically long held poses. Most of the poses are done on the ground. There's not that many of them. And you're still working, but it's more of a more of a passive work. So you're holding poses 2 to 3, sometimes 5 minutes, and you're working on increasing your range of flexibility. Not really working strength. You're not working core. You're usually not that type of practice. You're just sort of allowing breath and time and gravity to help the pose unfold.
does it pair up kind of like with the restorative we talked about? Or is there a difference between just
I
yin
would say
and
like restorative is like the most chill style of yoga. And then I would say yin is sort of a little bit above that because, again, you're not looking to build heat. You're not looking to build strength. You're not working on your core. You're just allowing the pose to unfold. It's not to say that you're not necessarily working a little bit or can't work in a little. It's not just about flopping necessarily into a pose. You can still use props and things to support yourself. Like you might need a cushioning underneath the knee and like have your hands on blocks. You might, depending on the pose, rest your belly on a bolster. Just you're being more aware. Restorative is you're just in for being in that position and resting and just being aware of what's going on. Yin, there's, I would say, a little bit of more awareness. If you're very flexible, you might actually work the pose a little bit more than just allowing yourself to just flop into it. And then I would say gentle is sort of above that in terms of another tier. So in gentle yoga, gentle can still be strong. I teach a gentle yoga and we still do strong things even though it's gentle. But I think gentle is to me more about you're working at a slower pace. We've got time in between the poses to kind of rest and pause.
And then we're working our way up then to get to the power, the flow, the vinyasa
the power,
flow.
the flow, the Ashtangas. That's right. You start to work up. Hatha, I would say, is somewhat above gentle, but again, it all depends too on the teacher. It often depends on the energy, the mood of the day. It depends who's in the room. Like,
but if we're just reading description,
yeah,
where we're going to start, this is a good. You gave us a really good flow of how those go up. And then probably, so where in the whole hierarchy of all this yoga is Kundalini?
I don't know. Kundalini is a little bit apart, I would say, on its own, in my opinion, because it's just a little bit so wacky a little bit. And again, there's two different types of Kundalini. There's a classical style of Kundalini, which I don't really have a lot of experience with, but I think it involves a lot of similar things. I think there's mantra and I think and it's certain emphasis on breath and movement, but I don't think it's as far as I know of it, maybe not as structured. I'm sure probably someone who's more versed in that style of classical Kundalini would beg to differ. I still teach Kundalini as was originally taught by Yogi Bhajan, and they're taught in terms of things that are called kriyas. And certain kriyas have certain desired effects either on body or mind, but they're usually very multi-layered. So even though you might be doing a set, for example, to work on your kidneys, you're not just working on your kidneys, you're also working on fears based with kidneys. So you must be working on your fear. And then that also might work on your adrenal glands because they're also like fight or flight, right? So Kundalini really works on a whole lot of different layers. It's the quickest way to really shift your energy. Like all yoga will shift your energy. And I don't mean that hierarchy. I just want to be clear too. I don't mean that hierarchy like one is better than the other. They're all good. They all have their place. There's lots of different yoga out there. Please explore.
You can't start Kundalini if you're not, you have to go through all these tiers before you get.
Definitely not.
Could be the first thing you do, or it could not. It just depends where you're at in your own personal journey, spiritually, how open you are too, I think.
Yeah.
Because Kundalini, does it, just briefly, but just in general, does it incorporate more meditation, more spirituality than going in for a vinyasa flow? Yeah, because there's more, is there mantra chanting? There's just other things going on during the Kundalini yoga, correct?
Yeah. Yes, there is. There's a lot of chanting that goes on in Kundalini class. There's a lot of different chanting.
Kundalini class you did, you were like, this is totally wacky. It's too weird for me. But then, like you said, it kept in your mind, it kept after you. And so it brought you right back to it because that's what you needed, right?
Exactly.
That's what you needed. Is Kundalini, let's just spell this. Is it linked strongly with like sexuality? This is a misconception or not? I don't know. Like you're awakening your feminine sexuality. Does that make sense?
I think that you're thinking of more as like tantric or tantra. I think has a little bit more of that element of.
Okay.
Kundalini is more about the movements that there's at the very base of your spine is your dormant coil of energy, which is called the kundal. And that through the practice of Kundalini, or in fact, even most yoga, you're trying to bring this natural rise of energy upward. so that you can be your true self and in your true form. Honestly, I don't like to advertise. Kundalini to me is not really that for me. I think that's a bit dangerous and can be disappointing. I had a friend who took lots of Kundalini training, and I think she was irritated that she didn't have some great big Kundalini awakening right away, and she thought the whole practice was BS. And some people may be very open to that. I know Natalie in her interview said maybe she had an experience with that, which kind of threw her off because she's a bit more open to that experience. I tend to be very practical and grounded. And maybe I've even had that experience of the Kumbhara rousing up, let's say. But to me, it's really about sort of just working through and figuring out how to work through and build on your different strengths and weaknesses. When you're in something really difficult or something you really hate, like, boy, I really hate this thing right now. Or I got another 3 minutes of this stupid right now. Or even like there's some days in the practice, it's like, wow, I did not do that one very good today.
Yeah. I think the bottom line with any yoga practice that you're showing is to go in not with any specific expectation for yourself. You just need to go into it open and see where it takes you. Don't have an expectation, like you said, oh, I'm going to go to a Kundalini class tonight and I'm going to be like completely connected with my higher self and so empowered and so ascended. No, that's never happening.
No.
And I know we'll hear stories. People will tell stories where those things have happened for them, and that's fine. But don't go into it with these kind of expectations that you're going to have this life-changing moment, right? You just let it slowly unfold in small ways, I think.
Exactly.
Because this yoga is just another tool in the toolbox in our midlife spiritual journey here. This is just another thing we can add in if this resonates with you. If not, maybe you're not ready to start your yoga practice. But I would encourage you to at least try, now that we've kind of dispelled some of the misconceptions, home, or you can do it online now. You don't need to buy the most expensive line of clothing, all the things.
No, especially not now.
Start with something really, like you said, restorative. Just start feeling that connection with your breath and your body and the movements, and then work your way up. Because if you start at something too hard, this is my experience, if you start at something too hard, you're going to leave, get in your car, and never come back.
Exactly. Well, to be honest,
sometimes, yeah.
The one thing too that brought me back into yoga and encouraged me, was from those few experiences at the community centers before, but during most of my 20s into my 30s, we were just kind of living a high life. We were just eating way too. I gained a lot of weight. I'll just put it that way. I gained quite a lot of weight. I wasn't very active at all. And I just knew that.
We don't think we're ever going to get old and fat. Nope. Yeah. We just think we can do whatever. Yep.
Do whatever. And then finally I realized, oh my goodness, one day I'm like, holy smokes. I'm like, I went to the doctor and I'm only this age and I'm this weight and blah, blah, blah. And so I said to my husband, we need to find something that you and I can do together, because you'll motivate me and I'll motivate you. So let's give this yoga thing a try. So it was asked that. So basically I started yoga as a weight loss journey and for something to get me off the couch.
Yeah. And that's a great starting point, right?
And that was my starting point.
Most of the battle is won by just getting to the class. That's a big accomplishment right there. Just do it, right? Don't worry about how good you are. Don't worry about how good the next person on the mat next to you is. It doesn't matter. Like, just do it for yourself. I think it's an accomplishment just to even show up. Like you said, even if you've modified all the way through, because I have to modify quite a bit and it's not just about flexibility and weight, but it's also about, for me, balance. I have different things that affect my balance. I can't stand perfectly straight and still on one foot for very long. No. We all have our stuff, right? If I'm in tree pose, okay, at some point I know I'm going to have to touch down my toe, right? Yeah. I'm not going to be able to keep one foot up on the other leg for a long extended period of time. I'll do it. And then when it gets to the point where it's like, nope, I need to just drop my foot down a bit and I just need to give myself a little bit more support. You just do it.
You just do it.
Someday I'll surprise myself and hold that damn tree pose for a while. Let be an accomplishment for me, even though the person in front of me might be doing some amazing, crazy stuff that I can't do. She's like you said, doing the headstands and the handstands and all this stuff. Well, I can't do any of that. So I'm going to do something different, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay for me. right?
Right.
And over there, her doing her headstand and all these things. She's not worried about what I'm doing anyway. You guys, she doesn't care. She's in her own world and she's doing her own accomplishments.
Yeah.
So we got to just focus on ourselves and be okay with going in.
Yeah.
And just start. Just get a good start.
Just get a good start. Yeah. I think that's so important. Just get a start, stick with it.
Yeah. And if you use yoga and you've been away from it for a while, well, maybe this is your sign to just start back. Even
if you've been a long time practitioner, you're always starting again.
Yeah, you're always starting again. And if you're overweight and middle age, we're like our hormones, everything's crazy. We got extra weight. I'll just say it. And so you're at home saying, because I've said this in my head too, before I start an exercise program or go back to the gym or start yoga, well, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to lose 10 more pounds. Well, maybe after I lose 20 pounds or how many ever pounds, I'll start that. No, don't do it, you guys. Just start now, because this is part of the journey to get to that goal. You don't worry about the extra 20 pounds, right? We all have it. We're all there. And I feel at a yoga practice, like I said, you're surrounded by like-minded people who aren't going to be judgy, as if you're over at the gym with a bunch of bodybuilders staring at themselves in the mirror.
Exactly.
This is a whole different vibe than the gym, a whole different vibe, you guys. So if you haven't tried it yet, you should try it.
And just be open to, yoga is about self-acceptance and not self-improvement.
Yes, I love that. So it's about self-acceptance,
not self-improvement. Even if you go in for wanting that yoga butt or losing the weight or whatever it is, that might be your underlying reason. You acknowledge that. But yeah, it's just about like, well, this is where I am today.
Yes.
This is what's coming up today.
There's no timeline that you need to. You're not working towards the Olympics here, you guys. There's no end goal. It's just day to day.
It's just day to day. Hopefully at one point, your mart will become this beautiful little place of sanctuary.
Yeah, where you sit down, take a big breath, and you're like, okay, I'm here.
Maybe we'll find yourself start moving.
Maybe keeping up with the class, or we may be a little behind. Whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, you just move at your own pace. We totally do.
Wow. Yeah, because sometimes I found my mind will wander and I'll look around and I'm still doing something and everybody else has moved on. And I'm like, oops. Like, because I was so in my own mind and my own body that I didn't even hear the instructor switch to a new pose. You feel a little bit silly for a minute. You're like, oh God, I'm in a whole different pose still. But then you just let it go and you just get back in. Yep. Okay. No, I'll do the next pose. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Nobody cares. The instructor's probably actually really happy that you're so in the moment that you did miss her cue. Yeah.
Exactly. So, there's all sorts of different beautiful ways to practice. I think you just have to be really willing to explore and, to really meet your body where you are at, be willing to modify, be willing to self-regulate, because ultimately you're still in charge. As great as the teacher is, as great as the guide is, you are still ultimately in charge. And, you are meant to listen to your own body, and figure out like, this is moving into pain. This is sharp. This doesn't feel good. I'm going to back off a little bit. Maybe I'll come out of the pose. Maybe I'll try to come back in, but not go as deep. Maybe I went too deep, and just play with it a little bit. It's a little bit of, it's very much, yoga is very much a science as much as it is a practice. Ultimately the goal of yoga is ultimately to unite with the divine and the one, whatever that oneness means to you, be it a personal God of words or something larger, grandiose, or just a feeling of love and in general for the whole world and community. But you might have a little glimmer of that in Shavasana. You might feel a little glimmer of that when you've done your practice, and you may not have it. You may, I also love to give lots of permission to my students too, because I know I've dealt with this. Being anxious and prone to depression is sometimes I've practiced and I don't feel any big change, and that happens too. Sometimes you practice and you've done breathing, you've done this, you've done that, and I still feel kind of crappy.
Yep. You just give yourself permission. We are all one. There is a oneness. And part of it is connecting with that oneness, which is connecting with ourselves too. Getting to know ourselves better, our higher selves, our inner selves, our soul, whatever you want to call it, getting to know it better. And in turn, when you get to know yourself better, you start to connect them with that oneness of everyone else.
Exactly.
And then you just become like a better person and people want to be around you more.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just on the mat, guys. We start there. And then, like she said, it opens up more things to us the deeper you dive into background, the theories behind it, all the different types.
If you like philosophy, if you like to read, you might very much enjoy the reading about the Yoga Sutras.
Yeah.
Because it's really based more as a science. And what's nice is the sutras are very short little verses. And they don't always, depending on what book you follow or pick up, they don't always necessarily give you a lot of explanation. So you can kind of reflect on that. And then, of course, those great things out there. I think Swami Satchidananda, he's got this really big book where he explains the verses.
Okay.
And what it means.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Why don't I do this? I'll put a link in the show notes for you guys. If you feel called to like do a deeper dive on all of that, we'll put some links and that'll help you get to that point. So Natalie offers, we talked about how like you can go in studio or you might just want to start your own practice at home. So Natalie has online classes via Zoom and we didn't really talk about Yoga Nidra, did we?
No, we didn't talk about Yoga Nidra.
No. Tell me just briefly about Yoga Nidra.
Yoga Nidra is yogic psychic sleep, and it's been shown very much to help and improve things like help to decrease stress, to help with depression, to help very much for relaxation. It's basically guided. It's a very long guided meditation relaxation. It is done lying down. So you're lying down in Shavasana, you're lying down on the floor and making sure that you're comfortable and adequately warm because you're there, depending on the length of Yoga Nidra. The just Yoga Nidra I do on Monday nights is often about 45 minutes, close to an hour long. So you want to be comfortable. You got to really make sure you're comfortable.
Really, because I did one online, just like through in one of the apps, Insight Timer or something, Yoga Nidra, and it led me through, I want to say 61 points of my body. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So there's a whole sequencing through it, which is a rotation with constant consciousness. It's to lead you into a hypnagogic state, which is the state between being wakefulness and alert. Yeah. And in Yoga Nidra too, you has to set something more as a sankalpa or resolve of something you would like to see manifested. So the first part, it was just getting yourself comfortable. Then they were asked for your resolve. And it's a simple, short, positive, general I statement of something you would like to see manifested in your life. It's like planting a seed in the fertile soil of your consciousness that you're hoping to bring to light. And then we would work through rotation of consciousness, which are usually the 61 points in the body, working through that. And then after that, there might be a body floor awareness. And from there, you might get into a breathing pattern, noticing your breathing, working with the breathing. So this is all guided imagery. You're just listening to the walls and you're just following along the best you can.
So yoga isn't really what we think of as typical yoga with all the movement. It's more about connecting with your mind, body, spirit thing, right?
Yes.
You're not really moving hardly at all. It's just
we're not supposed to move, ideally.
Don't move. Okay, so that's Yoga Nidra, you guys.
Yeah, we're just lying down and you're comfortable. And some of my students who practice it, they really love it because for them, they find meditating very hard. And it's really like you're meditating because you're following something, right? So a couple of my students have mentioned that they get so much benefit out of it because it's making them a little kinder, a little gentler. It's giving them a real moment to breathe and stop. They're still doing something, and yet they're still getting all the benefits of meditation and relaxation wrapped up in one.
Yeah, awesome. Natalie has online classes. So like we said, she does them via Zoom. So you can do them doesn't matter where you're located. You can sign up and log on and tell me a little bit about how that works. Right?
Yeah. And if you're new to me, if we're new to each other, let's say, I would like to open it up that, I would like to try to meet you first, even if it's on a via Zoom, talk about what your challenges are, what your goals are. Maybe we can have a little practice together, even if it's like a little 30-minute, just so I can see how you generally move, how things are coming up. Like it's very much a dialogue in that first one.
So is the best way for someone to reach out to you, like we've got all the links in the show notes, you guys, to her website and everything. So the best way, if you do want to have that little conversation because you're really new to this whole thing and you want to see what's best for you, would that be to send you through your contact page, email you? What would be the best way to start that connection with you?
I would say email me.
I'll put the link in the show notes, you guys, for the best way to contact her. So that you just click on the link. Yeah, just click on the link. And do you have your one-on-one options are all in person, not online, correct?
I can offer one-on-one online as well too. That's also still an option.
Yeah. So if someone even just for the first session just wants it to be the two of you, so you can learn and grow together and get to know what practice is best for them. Maybe you want to do one-on-one and then sign up for the 12-week.
Exactly. Or we can have a little package together. Maybe we just try 5 or, whatever duration works well for you, whatever you're willing to commit to.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Do you have any other offerings that you want to let people know about?
I do have a YouTube page. Again, I'm not really big into videos, but there's a lot of just Yoga Nidra there. You can certainly try a few of my yoga videos if you want to get a little sense of my teaching style and flow.
Okay, well, I hope this has helped everybody. Like if you've been nervous or thinking about starting a yoga practice as you're in your little midlife spiritual journey here, that this answered some of your questions. And if you have more questions, obviously you can reach out to Natalie and she can help you with that. And just the main thing is get started and don't overthink it. Don't worry too much. You guys. Start your own practice right where you're at today, right? And you just progress at your own speed.
Exactly. Yoga is about self-acceptance and not self-improvement.
Exactly. Self-acceptance, not self-improvement. I love that. I got to remember that more. Yep. Yeah. I think we all do. Yeah, that's a tough one. But
it is a tough one.
Thank you, Natalie, so much. This has been so good. I love that you shared all your expertise on all the different types of yoga because I don't know enough about it. And I know a lot of my listeners also have a lot of misconceptions and are nervous about getting started. So this is a great episode to get them started. And again, if you guys decide you want to do a deep dive into any of this, of course, do your own thing, figure out what's best. And we'll do other episodes where we dive in deeper to specific, practices or whatever. But this was a great overview to get everybody started and figure out where to start. Just start.
Yeah. Just start.
Yeah, pick one. If it's Yoga Nidra, it's Yoga Nidra. If it's chair, float, whatever it is. If you're super athletic and you want to try for something a little bit, hey, do it. Yeah, it's
exactly.
If this is even just part of your weight loss journey, it's going to help. Yep.
It's going to help. It's going to help.
All our joints start to do some crazy things too. So this will help stop that progression for us. Yeah, take better care of our stupid bodies. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you, Natalie. I totally appreciated you taking your time out with us today. This has been good. I love it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me here.
Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much, and I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. The legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.